This is the walkthrough video for PCTC 2020-2021 round 2 question 6 anagram scrambler. Okay, so in this question we're given a word and a number, and we basically just need to follow these 3 rules to continuously build up our new scrambled anagram word and then print that off to the screen. Now, there are so many ways of doing this problem, so many ways, as always. I'm going to show you the way that I think is best, and I usually define best by the solution that obviously gets us all the points. But crucially, the solution that you can write out the quickest, the solution that kind of requires as little thinking as possible. And it requires less thinking because you don't need to bother with all sorts of random edge cases in your problem. Whereas here, there are random things you may need to bother with if you kind of do a conventional solution. So I'm going to show you a bit of a unique solution that I think is much faster to kind of implement. And if you've seen any of these first 5 question videos that I've made, you know that I have kind of taken unique approaches in most of these 5 questions. And I think even if you're a bit confused initially when you first watch the video about my approach and the commands I've used, stick with it because, I mean, if you're watching this video the night before PCTC, then ignore me. But if you're watching it weeks or months in advance, then you have plenty of time to really understand what these commands do, understand what you can do with Python, the power of Python. Because if you master the commands and techniques that I'm showing you, then I think that you're going to be able to solve questions much faster. And obviously it's up to you as to what command or technique you prefer to use the most. I'm just here to kind of show you different techniques and potential ways that might be faster than your way. But again, there's probably a way that's faster than the technique I'm going to show you. There's always a faster way, right? And so, yeah, just kind of feel free to explore Python and kind of really learn what you can do with it. So after that ramble, what is the approach I'm going to take? So we're going to input our word, and then I'm going to store our word in a specific data structure called a deck. This is how you spell it in Python. A deck stands for double-ended queue, I think. We don't care about that. But a deck, essentially, you can think of it as a glorified list. It's a list that has extra commands. And extra commands includes, for example, you can pop from the left of the list. So when you pop from a list in Python, you pop from the end of the list by default. But with a deck, you can pop from the left of the list. I'm not going to go into why that's useful because in this question, that isn't actually that useful. Because in Python, you can just kind of pop. Like in Python, you can do list.pop0, which will obviously pop from the left of the list. That's actually worse than popping from the left of the list in a deck. You can go Google that if you're interested. But another command a deck has is you can rotate the list, right? So you can literally just rotate. So here, the question tells us to rotate the remaining word characters 1 character left n times. We can literally do that with one command if we have a deck, because a deck is a glorified list which has extra functionality. And so we can just rotate our word, which is quite nice. And a rotation, if you don't understand it, is essentially what this line describes, where if we were to rotate every character left once, we'd end up with this. So the H has been chopped off from the beginning and added to the end. And we keep chopping the word up, the letter from the beginning and adding it to the end. And that's how we rotate it n times. Okay, so how do we use a deck in Python? Well, a deck isn't actually a default command, but it is included in the standard library. So we can import a deck from the module or the library called collections. And now we can use a deck. So let's input our word. So our word is going to be the input, but let's first convert this into a deck because that's useful. So if you wanted to convert this to a list in Python, you just do that. But as we said, we want a deck because it has extra functionality. So this is how we convert it to a deck. Basically the same thing. Like a deck is very, very similar to a list. Much of the things that you do with a deck are the same things you do with a list. Now we also want to input n. So let's do n is equal to int input. And now we just want to follow through with this algorithm. So we need to create our empty answer string. And then we want to keep on repeating this algorithm until we have no more extra letters. So we stop repeating this algorithm as soon as we've run out of extra letters in our initial word. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to say while word. And what this does in Python is it's going to say, for as long as there are elements in the deck word, remember, a deck can be treated like or thought of as a list. So long as there are elements in this list deck thingy called word, and I want to keep repeating this algorithm. As soon as there are no elements, I want to stop this while loop. You can choose a for loop if you want, but oh well. So what do we do every time we repeat the algorithm? Well, step 1, rotate the remaining characters 1 character to the left n times. Well, to do that, you take your deck, then you do .rotate, and then the number you put in here is how many times you want to rotate it. So we want to rotate our deck n times, but by default this rotates it forwards, whereas we want to rotate it left, and so let's just do a minus n, and this will rotate it the opposite direction. And then what do? We want to remove the first character from the word, and so that will be word dot pop left. So you can just do pop 0 if you want, and this will pop from the left. But the dedicated pop, but for when it comes to a deck, there is a dedicated pop left command, which again for reasons which we're not going to go into is better. So you can pop the leftmost character from our deck, and then we want to add that character to the end of our scrambled output string. So let's do answer is going to be plus equal to the popped character. And that is it. We just have to print off our answer, and then we've hopefully got 10 out of 10. And you can see how quickly you coded this up without having to think about all of these random edge cases and specific numbers and specific rotations and so on. This was a pretty simple solution, because as long as you know what a deck is and you know how to use a deck, then you can bang out a solution like this in literally 30 seconds.